speak to you on the subject, how to grow as a leader. This is a passion in my life, not only that you become a leader, but that you personally grow in your life. And a lot of times when people come to my leadership conferences and they listen to me speak on leadership, they come up to me, and I remember one man in particular, he was in his middle 60s, he came up to me during one of the breaks, and he said, John, he said, man, this stuff you're giving me on leadership, he said, wow, he said, I wish I would have heard you 20 years ago. And when he said that, I looked at him and said, no, you don't. And he said, no. He said, I kid you not. He said, if I could have heard you 20 years ago, he said, my life would have been changed. And I said, no, it wouldn't have. Now, he doesn't think I understand what he says. He said, no, he said, you don't understand. He said, the stuff that you gave today, he said, that's huge. He said, if I would have heard this 20 years ago, he said, I would have been a different man. And I looked at him and I smiled and I said, no, you wouldn't. By this time, he's totally confused and puzzled. And he looked at me and said, well, what do you mean? I said, if you would have heard me 20 years ago, you wouldn't have heard me say these things that I'm saying today. You don't think I came out of mother's womb with this, do you? You see, here's the point. You never stop growing. I never stop growing. What I'm learning today, I'm applying today, but I can promise you, as I go down the road, I plan on learning a lot more. In fact, when I look back at my years of pastoring in San Diego, and if I listen to one of my messages I preached 10 years ago, I mean, I just want to call the people back there on a phone, and I just want them all together in the auditorium, and I just want to make one big public apology. I just want to say, I just heard what I just said 10 years ago, and it was terrible. Let's put it this way. If you can go back and enjoy what you did 10 years ago, you probably didn't do too much. There's a process of growth and development in your life that should always be expanding you. And there are three words. There are three words that determine the growth in your life and in my life. And the first word is choice. This allows me to start growing. The second word is change. This allows me to keep growing. And the third word is climate. This allows me to enjoy growing. And in this lesson, I want to talk to you about the choices you make, the changes you make, and the climate you create that helps you to grow as a person and as a leader. So let's jump into it. There are 10 choices that are necessary to grow as a leader, all right? Number one, choose to be a leader. Now, the reason I say that is there are a lot of people who don't want to lead. In fact, there are a lot of people who would rather let that responsibility be someone else's. Number two, choose to start growing now. Many people, they'll say, you know what, I think I'm going to do that sometime. I'm going to read that book sometime. I'm going to watch that video sometime. Choose to start growing now, and there are several reasons for it. Let me give you some of them. Letter A, growth is not an automatic process. The reason that you need to choose to grow now is because it doesn't automatically happen to you. It doesn't automatically happen to me. In fact, here, how many of you heard somebody say, one of these days I'm going to do this? How many of you heard that expression? Well, one of these days. You know what I found? I found out that one of these days is usually none of these days. So you choose to start growing now because growth is not an automatic process. It isn't just going to happen automatically to you or to me. Letter B, this decision today will ensure a better tomorrow. The best way to guarantee that your tomorrow is right is do the right thing today. Letter C, it is our responsibility. It's our responsibility to do our own growing. In fact, I love what Warren Bennett said in his book on becoming a leader. Look at what he said. He said, you've got to do your own growing no matter how tall your grandfather is. And letter D, your growth will determine your organization's growth. That's a fact. Your growth will determine the growth of your organization. Grow the organization and not the people. In other words, when you try to grow your company, when you try to grow your business, your department, you try to grow it without growing people, that equals short-term growth. You may spurt, but it will be short-term. But if you grow the organization and the people, that equals long-term growth. Now watch this. But when you grow the organization and the people and the leaders, it's lifelong growth. Wow, that's huge. In our Enjoy group, we have about 200 employees. And we have 13 mentoring groups in our company. What we have is 13 key leaders in our organization that have a group of people under them, usually 8 to 10, maybe 11 or 12, but in that size. And these 13 key leaders just pour their life into developing and enriching the lives of the other people in our organization. And this whole mentoring process is huge. Now, that's what I'm talking about, the very fact that you're growing and you're growing people around you. In fact, in a little bit, I'm going to talk to you about how to create that growing environment and that climate in your life. Number 3, have a teachable spirit. If you really want to grow yourself, have a teachable spirit. I have a friend that whenever I see her come to any kind of a setting, she always has a tablet with her. And one day I looked at her and I called her by name and I said, "Why do you always have a tablet?" She said, "Because I'm always ready to write down anything that I have never learned before." Number 4, focus on self-development, not self-fulfillment. That's a Fred Smith principle he taught me many, many years ago. Focus on self-development, not self-fulfillment. Let me read it to you. The motive is the difference. Self-fulfillment means doing what I enjoy most and I will receive the most strokes from doing. Self-development means doing what I am talented and uniquely fit to do, and that becomes my responsibility. Let me give you the difference. Self-fulfillment thinks of how something serves me. Self-development thinks of how something helps me to serve others. With self-fulfillment, feeling good is the product. With self-development, feeling good is the byproduct. Differences between self-development and self-fulfillment. Number 5, never stay, and I think that's the key word right there. Never stay satisfied with present accomplishments. Never stay satisfied with where you are. Stay satisfied with perhaps what you've been able to do and accomplish, but continue to want to grow and develop. On the next page, David Glass, the Chief Executive Officer of Walmart, when asked what he most admired about the late Sam Walton, who was the founder of Walmart, he went on to note, "There's never been a day in his life since I've known him that he didn't improve in some way." That's huge. Dr. Charles Garfield, I want to read this paragraph because it's a big one. "Peak performers do not see accomplishment as a fixed state, nor as a safe haven in which the individual is moored and completed and finished. Not once have I found a peak performer speak of an end to the challenge, excitement, curiosity, and wonder. Quite the contrary, one of the most engaging characteristics in an infectious talent for moving into the future is an infectious talent for moving in the future, generating new challenges, and living with a sense of more work to be done." Number 6, be a continual learner. We never graduate. In fact, if I stopped right now, and if I came down to where you are and I asked you the question, what are you learning right now? What would you say? In other words, this is not an accident. On Sunday, I'm going to be gone for about a week, and I spend a lot of time in preparing for a trip. And you know what? I spend a very short time in packing the suitcase. That's just clothes. But I spend a long time packing my briefcase. Because in my briefcase, I'm going to put the books I'm going to read, I'm going to put the projects that I'm going to work on. I'm going to be gone for about 6 days, and I have a maximum impact leadership tape I want to work on while I'm gone. And I want to work on my book on the 17 laws of teamwork. I want to work on it while I'm gone. And I have a book on Civil War leaders I want to read. And what I'm saying is, I'm talking about planning ahead and always be in a state of preparedness and growth. My father was huge in this. My dad explained and taught me so much. He said, John, always have a book by the places you like to sit down. Usually I've got about 6 books going at the same time. And I have glasses at every place too. That's an old age deal. And when I sit down, I got my glasses, I got the book. I mean, maybe only for 10 minutes, but just begin to put it, be a continual learner. Number 7, channel your learning to a few major themes. Now, I'm passionate about this. C.S. Lewis said that every person is composed of a few themes. Probably if there's anything I'd like to talk to you about in the growth area with passion and time, this would be the area. But let me give it a shot for a couple of minutes. In other words, what I'm saying to you is you can't grow in every area. I mean, there are people that, they read a little bit of this, read a little bit of that. And the good news is they read a lot, but they're not specific enough to develop. So you have to become strategic in what you read and what you listen to and what you see and how you think. And so, for example, I'm going to the only way I know how to teach this to you, because I'm trying to help as a leader for you to develop and grow, is to share it with you out of my own life. There are 5 major themes in my life where I do my reading and I do my growth and I do my development. Now you have to understand, for me, I'm in the people business. So because I'm in the people business, a lot of my themes deal with people. So let me give you the 5 areas that I really work on in my own growth. Number 1 is relationships, because this determines how I know people. So I learn a lot and read a lot about relationships. Number 2 is attitude, because this determines how well I relate to people. Number 3 is communication. This determines how well I connect and motivate with people. Number 4 in my life is leadership. This determines how well I influence people. And number 5 is personal growth. This determines how long I'm going to be able to do all the above things. Now, these are the 5 themes of my life: relationships, attitude, communication, leadership, and personal growth. Now, these aren't going to be your 5 things, but what I'm saying is sit down and look at yourself and say, okay, what are the areas where where do I really want to grow? Earl Nightingale said that if you'll spend 1 hour a day on any given subject for a 5-year period, at the end of that 5-year period, you'll become an expert on that subject. So what's the area you want to develop in? What's the area that you want to grow in? Okay, we're still talking about the choices we make to grow. The 8th thing is develop a personal creed. Sit down and ask yourself, what's my own personal creed? Because there's value in that. Let me give it to you. Letter A. It spells out all the concepts that I accept as standards of my thinking and of my behavior. The personal creed kind of basically sets the standards for your thinking and for your behavior. Letter B, it becomes a compass for my life. It's what's going to give you, it's going to be what gives you direction. Letter C, it helps me develop habits which can turn into reflexes. And letter D, the 4th thing, it helps me to know and contribute to my uniqueness. And maybe to illustrate just for a moment before we go, and you can turn the page, but let me illustrate just for a moment here on this. My own personal creed is that I was born to add value to people in the spiritual and in the personal growth area of their life. I honestly believe that's why I was born. I was born to help people grow spiritually, and I was to help people grow professionally in your walk. My whole job is just to help people grow. I had a guy ask me the other day, he said, what do you do? I used to pastor church, like I said, I pastor church. Now all I do is I do these kind of things. I speak at conferences, and I write books. And so, but when you try to explain that to people, they say, what do you do? You say, well, I write. And they kind of look at you and say, yes, and what have you been smoking too? And so the other day when somebody was pressing me, I said, but what do you do? All right, you speak and write, but what do you really do? And all of a sudden I thought to myself, and I smiled and I said, I know what I do. I'm a lid lifter. I help people raise to their potential. I lift the lids off of people so that they can go to a whole new level. Now, that's my personal creed. That isn't going to be yours, but here's what I'm saying. Once you have a personal creed, you know how you want to grow. You know in the areas you want to grow because you'll read things and you'll learn things and you'll develop in your life in the areas that are going to help people and add value to the moment. Now, the ninth choice that I have to make is to pay the price. You got to make a choice to pay the price because there are price tags for personal growth. Let me give you 6. Number 1 is discipline. People that grow personally are disciplined. Number 2 is risk, because you're going to get out of your comfort zone. Number 3 is change, because you cannot grow without changing. Growth means change. Number 4 is loneliness. Again, when you personally grow, there are times when you're going to take the journey without some of the people that you would like to take the journey with. Number 5 is time. It takes a lot of time to grow. I love it. One guy said, all my life I have worked on being an overnight success. It just doesn't happen. And number 6, misunderstanding. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding that comes with people that are really committed to personal growth. I think not only that you leave your own comfort zone, but I think a lot of times you leave the comfort zone of those around you. And there's a lot, sometimes people don't never understand. Now, let me give you one more choice before we talk about some changes you need to make in your life to grow. And the 10th choice is to develop a system to apply what you learn. This is very important. In fact, Jim Rohn said, don't let your learning lead to knowledge, let your learning lead to action. Now, in my life, because I have to speak and write all the time, I have to file. And so you read this on your own, but you're going to find how I develop my filing system and all the things that I basically do. But what I'm saying to you is I learned a long time ago that if I was going to teach and if I was going to speak and if I was going to write, I was going to have to not only read stuff, but I was going to have to put it in places where I could find it. There's the thought. You know what the number one time waster is in life? Looking for things that are lost. Boy, we can run, oh dear God, I was just wondering where that was myself. Okay, huh? Well, what I'm saying is develop a system to what you learn, you can apply very quickly.